Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. Today I'm speaking with Morgan from How to Celiac. Morgan makes the most hilarious Instagram and TikTok videos about celiac disease and living gluten-free. She has an awesome YouTube channel, and she also has an amazing blog with lots of tips and recipes. This was a really fun conversation. We covered lots of topics, including her journey with celiac disease, places she's traveled to, and some of her favorite gluten-free eats. Also, we have the same favorite musicals, so stick around to find out what they are. So without further ado, Morgan. Hi Morgan, thank you so much for joining me today.
Oh, no worries. Thank you so much for having me.
So just to start off, can you tell us a little bit about yourself, where you're from, and what you do on the internet?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm Morgan. I'm from Christchurch, New Zealand, but I currently live in London in the UK. I have celiac disease, obviously, and I just make a lot of content around being a celiac, about traveling, lots of recipes, just anything to do with food. Basically, I love food and I love making videos, so that's what I'm doing.
Awesome. Also, Morgan has the funniest celiac and gluten-free videos on TikTok and Instagram. Her reels are killer. So if you haven't checked them out, be sure to do that. I'll leave you all the links below. Can you tell us a little bit about your journey to getting a celiac diagnosis?
Yeah, absolutely. Like, I reckon I was pretty lucky. The investigation part of my celiac diagnosis was rather short compared to a lot of people. A lot of people really struggle to get a diagnosis. But once I finally went to a doctor about the issues that I was having, I got a blood test straight away. I was called the next day, told that I was likely that I had celiac disease, put on the waiting list for an endoscopy, had that in like 6 weeks' time, had celiac disease. But the thing that I like to sort of talk about and focus on was that for the 5 years prior to this, I was having issues that I didn't talk to anyone about. So I'd probably been a celiac for a long time, but I just didn't I didn't know anything was wrong. I had a lot of odd bowel movements, but I didn't know that anything was different to anyone else. So it wasn't until I was 22 where I actually decided, hey, I'm going to go to a doctor and just get this sorted, because I was planning on moving over here. And I wanted to get that sorted before I moved over here. So it was very lucky. I got the diagnosis 3 weeks before I came.
You know, it's just so crazy because I relate so much to that whole thing about the 5 years that you just sort of like suffered in silence.
I remember I watched your celiac diagnosis video and I was like, this feels similar.
Yeah. Because I mean, mine, I think I had symptoms for about 10 years if you include like low iron and that sort of thing. But I've always kind of had stomach issues, but I just thought, you know, like anybody who has a lot of pasta or beer gets
exactly
bloated, right?
So I recently did a video for Celiac NZ where I talked about how the only things you really hear people talk when in regards to pooping is if they've been constipated for 4 days or if they've been on the toilet for 45 minutes. It's like the two ends of the spectrum, which aren't good, but it's really normalized for some reason.
Nobody likes to talk about poop.
Oh, I love it now. I'm like, let's hear it.
Great. If you want to hear all the poop content, go to Morgan. She's got it. She's got it all.
I mean, just the other day I was talking about, because something that I found quite interesting, I've been finding interesting recently, is how anxiety almost feels the same for my bowels as when I've been gluten. So it's really hard to tell if I've accidentally eaten something or if I'm just feeling a little bit stressed or a little bit nervous, because it's exactly the same.
P.S. Both Morgan and I both went to musical theater school, which is crazy. But because
that's right.
I feel like I was nervous all throughout musical theater school. We had like performance classes every day. So like, how was I supposed to know that my stomach was upset because of what I was eating versus nervous?
These horrible things called performance prac. And it was like 2 times every term, so about 8 to 10 times a year. We had to sing in front of the whole school, in front of all the tutors, and then be criticized on the spot. Nothing. There will be no diuretic that is better than that situation. Like if I was feeling constipated, I wouldn't be after that, I swear.
Yes. Okay, so what was your biggest struggle after getting your celiac diagnosis?
Well, immediately after, I rang up the airplane people and I was like, hey, can I change my meal to a gluten-free meal? I've got celiac disease now. And they're like, absolutely. That should be absolutely fine. they got there, and naturally they didn't do that. So the biggest immediate challenge was surviving 2 12-hour flights from New Zealand to Hong Kong and then Hong Kong to London with just a bag of M&Ms. So it was a big learning curve on like how to prepare. But I would say that after that, sort of going back to my celiac diagnosis, I was just told I had celiac disease and that I can't eat gluten. That's all I was told. I wasn't even given a pamphlet. And so I didn't realize how much of a big life change that can possibly be. So for the realizations and the challenges, they all sort of came later when I was in those situations and I was like, oh, maybe I can't eat out with my friends like I used to be able to. So yeah, it came in waves. But I'd say the biggest challenge would be sort of getting people to understand. And that goes for my own family, friends, anyone. They just I don't know. There obviously is a stigma around eating gluten-free, how it was sort of fad dieted in the early, 2000s. So I feel like we've got a bit of an uphill battle with that.
The social aspect, that would be my biggest struggle. It's so hard. It's so hard too when like you don't want to be perceived as a fad dieter, but like what can you do?
Like I'm not one of those, and it's like so frustrating. Like I can understand why wait staff ask you, is it a preference or is it celiac disease? But I can understand why it's so frustrating. It's like, no, I'm not just a fad dieter. Like it can get really annoying.
I've read that you've done a lot of traveling while being celiac. So what places have you traveled to? And maybe we can get into what was your favorite and what was the most challenging.
Oh, definitely. So I think Europe the places I've been to in Europe have been pretty great for gluten-free eating, especially Italy. And I think like a lot of people are sort of understanding that Italy is like a wonderful place for having celiac disease. I think most of them have it. That's a made-up statistic, but a lot of people have celiac disease in Italy, and so it's like really catered for. So Rome specifically, one of the best places, best gluten-free pizza I've ever had was in Rome. Where else have I gone? Gosh, I haven't traveled in like 2 years now. So
I know you've gone to Japan.
Yes, absolutely. Japan. I'm actually making a whole video on eating gluten-free in Japan because I love it. I think it's such a wonderful place to travel. And I know that there are a lot of people that are perhaps apprehensive about going because of what they've heard about how difficult it is to eat there. It is. I won't sugarcoat it. It is difficult to be gluten-free in Japan. And that's just because they've got way less of a percentage of anyone that's diagnosed with celiac disease. They don't know about it. Even gluten is one of the things that people wouldn't immediately understand. But in saying that, it's catching on. And prior to the pandemic, there was actually a plethora of restaurants, especially in Tokyo, that were 100% gluten-free. And they were just the most amazing places. A couple have unfortunately shut down because they relied mostly on tourists because the people coming into Japan are the ones that are gluten-free. Everything there is just so delicious. When I went there last time, I wasn't vegetarian. So that's going to be a challenge because to be honest, I'm probably going to end up eating fish and probably chicken because that would be incredibly hard to be both gluten-free and vegetarian. But yeah, Japan's just amazing. Like my favorite meal in the world that I've ever had in my whole life was the sushi platter from this place called Shaw's Sushi Dining and Bar, and it's in a town called Kawaguchi Co at the base of Mount Fuji, and they serve the most delicious sushi platters and everything. All of their tempura batter is made out of rice flour. They've got gluten-free soy sauce on the table, which is pretty much unheard of if you're in Japan, and just best meal. If you're going somewhere, if you want to go to Japan and you want to go to Kawaguchi Co, you have to go to Shaw's Sushi Dining and Bar.
I love that. I really want to go to Japan, so I need to add that to my list.
Oh my gosh, you have to. But it's also like it's such a beautiful town. Like I was there almost exactly 2 years ago, so in autumn, and it's beautiful, like autumn red leaves and Mount Fuji. Just everything is stunning. And on top of that, you can have a good meal. But yeah, there is a few tips and tricks on getting around Japan that I'm making a whole video about, just like where you can find food if you're struggling. But yeah, really good. I'm trying to think where else I've been. Hungary and Budapest. Budapest was really good. I found that wherever Shah goes, it seems to be okay. Do you?
And Shara's a lot of places.
Yeah, you get Shara in Canada, eh?
Yeah.
And it's crazy. Like, obviously, they've got regional places because there's such a variety of different foods you can get. When I went to Berlin, the Shar food there was like amazing. Like, I was like, why don't we have this? Like, wait, so good. Yeah, I just travel for food, to be honest. Like, my whole itinerary for anywhere I ever go is just like where I can eat and when I'm gonna go.
Yeah, exactly. I really want to go to Italy, and I would say that like probably 80% of it is food based.
You got it. I agree. I just love eating. I love being somewhere else and eating.
Of those places, which one was the most challenging, do you think?
So I would say, I didn't mention, but Iceland I traveled to was quite difficult. Japan is obviously difficult, but I just wanted to mention Iceland as well. Their food's quite expensive, and it's because it has to be imported, obviously. And there is like sort of not as much knowledge about celiac disease as well in Iceland because it's so small. But yeah, I'd say Iceland and Japan were the most tricky, but not places I would ever not go because it was tricky, if that makes sense.
Yeah. You are London based, right? London,
Yes.
UK.
Yeah.
Okay. So do you have a favorite spot or two in London for
Only two? Oh my gosh.
You can Google the top 5 if you want. It doesn't matter.
No, it's just like, I think like if there was anywhere I was going to move to after being diagnosed with celiac, I chose the right place because there are so many places that I can eat here. My favorites would be, oh my gosh, I did think about this as well. So Niche is a 100% gluten-free restaurant. It's sort of like a little bit fancier. They do these amazing like Parmesan donuts, and you have them with this like tomato jam. Oh my god, it's so good. They also have really delicious mains, but that's a standout. They also have, if you're a chicken eater, really good fried chicken. But my new favorite is the Vurger Co, which is I think it's a chain. Yeah, I think there's two or three of them in London, and they are a completely vegan burger place, but all of their sides, all of their fillings are gluten-free. You just have to ask for a gluten-free bun. Everything's delicious there. If I was going to pick some sweet places, it would be so hard. So many good places. I like Vida Bakery. They are a vegan and gluten-free cupcake store. Pearl and Groove is this amazing, completely gluten-free sort of cakes and bakes store. Like, such a wonderful place if you wanted to get a fancy cake. Libby's gluten-free bakery, which is not only gluten-free, but it's sugar-free as well, which is just like amazing. So yeah, there's just so much to choose from. It's really hard to pick.
You gave us lots of great suggestions. So anyone who's going to London now has some great places to go to. When I went to London, I was like, I want to move here.
Really?
Even just going to like Tesco, the free from aisle was like magic.
Compared to where you are, do you think it's pretty good in the supermarkets?
I mean, I am lucky that I live in Toronto, so there are more options than other places. I just feel like we're behind. And also how restaurants treat gluten-free and celiac here is just so different than over there. A lot of places don't care about cross-contact here, which is a bit of a problem.
I'd say New Zealand's pretty similar. If I was to compare the two, like London and New Zealand, New Zealand's has only, I'd say, recently started to have some really good gluten-free options. Just 3 or 4 years ago, it was a lot different. And I imagine even prior to that, there would have been almost nothing. So hopefully just with, raising awareness, there'll be so many more places to eat in the future.
That's the goal, right?
That's why I'm doing this. It's just for more food options.
Exactly. Do you have one piece of advice you would give to someone who has been recently diagnosed with celiac disease?
Don't eat gluten. No. Probably just like be kind to yourself because it is such a huge change, and you might not realize, like me, you might not realize it's such a big change, but it is. And if you are just gentle on yourself, and there will be mistakes and it will be quite frustrating, but you're just learning and it will get a lot easier.
Awesome. Great advice.
And don't eat gluten.
Okay, let's do like a quick I forgot what this was called last time too. What is it called? Like flash round, like the quick questions.
Quick fire?
Quick fire.
Yeah, okay.
Quick fire questions, okay?
Okay.
What is your favorite gluten-free bread?
Toss up between two. I really like the Shah new loaf, soft loaf. But it's quite cheap here, and I don't know if it's cheap in Toronto. Is it? No.
Most bread here is like $7-8.
Yeah, it's not like, say it's £2 in the UK. So for what you get, it's kind of a lot more worth it than I would say. And the other one is Juvela. It's such a phenomenal free bread. But it is quite hard to find in stores. You can get it as a subscription, I think, if you celiac disease, if you live in certain places. So random how they do subscription or like prescription, based gluten-free food here. Do they have that? Do you have that in Canada?
Nope.
Prescription? No.
No,
Yeah, it's really
you get a tax credit, which is kind of like a complicated process.
It's really odd how it works here. If you're in England, it sort of depends what region you're in. But if you're in Scotland, Wales, and Northern Ireland, you just get a prescription if you want it. It's very odd. It's very odd. I love the idea of being able to get like subsidized gluten-free food because it's just more expensive and it's like it's not our fault.
I've read that Italy, they get like a monthly subsidy or something to go towards gluten-free food, which I think is the best way to do it, because the tax credit thing here is, you have to keep your receipts, you have to add it all up, and it has to be like a certain percentage of your overall income or you don't get it back. So yeah, it's
a pain.
Yeah, it's a big pain.
We should just move to Italy.
I know. Also, another side note on this is the other thing I noticed when I went to the UK is that there's so many more like fresh loaves of gluten-free bread in the grocery store. Whereas here it's like mostly just frozen.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, that's really humbled me. I should really feel a lot better about my bread choices because ours are all fresh. You're absolutely right.
Yeah.
We've got some frozen buns and pizza bases, but on the whole, yeah, you're right. They're all fresh.
Okay. Next question is favorite gluten-free pasta.
Blank. So I was just like the spirally type, not necessarily the one that swirls. Okay, so there is a amazing pasta brand here. The restaurant had to close because of the pandemic. Hopefully they'll be back, I think, next year. Leggero, which I think means slow in Italian. They do the most amazing pasta, and they also sell it on their website. So you can't, like, in terms of any pasta, it's the only fresh pasta I've ever been able to get. But it's delicious. It's amazing.
I wonder if that's the place that I went to in London.
It's, oh my gosh, there's two, I think there's two, or there's one in a market, and there was one like right in Soho, like quite fancy. Like they have a thing like a pink pasta, tortellini pasta was quite a big thing, or black pasta or something.
Is that like near the theater district?
Yes.
Okay, so yeah, I would have gone there then.
Oh yeah, did you like it? You're like, I hated it.
Yeah, no, it was great. Okay, favorite gluten-free pizza?
White Rabbit. I think it's all vegan as well. Not that I'm vegan, it's just a lot, there's a lot of crossover. They do a lot of their products. Not all of their products are gluten-free, but they do really lovely pizzas, and they've got very soft crusts instead of like hard and crispy, which I like.
Yes, I love that too. Favorite baked good?
Biscuits, like cookies. Would you say a biscuit is like a scone, like?
Yeah, so a biscuit here is more like a scone, but there's sort of like a difference between biscuits and scones here too. So a scone is usually more like the triangular.
A triangle.
The what?
Did you say a triangle?
Yeah, like a triangle shaped scone, or also like a British tea scone would be called a scone here.
Okay.
And then biscuits are like they're more buttery than like a British scone.
Okay.
Yeah, and then what you would call a biscuit is a cookie.
Yeah. I would say, like, for me, the difference between biscuit and cookie is like whether it's crunchy or whether it's soft. But that's just for me. Like, I don't even know. I didn't even know there was a difference until I moved to the UK. But yeah, cookies, I'd say. Cookies are my favorite.
A certain kind of cookie?
Just chocolate chip. I'm a plain gal.
Love it. Favorite comfort food?
Cookies and hot chips.
Hot chips is in like French fries?
Yeah. Oh my gosh. I forgot that's different too. It's like a whole nother language. Did you say a French fry can be a thick one though? Because for me, French fries are the thin ones.
I mean, I usually just say fries. I don't really often say French fries.
Okay.
Yeah.
So in New Zealand, I call chips. Oh my God. Just speaking of all of the ways you can say things, chips in New Zealand are the hot ones, and they're also the crisps. So like they're chips as well. So I call like crisps chips. It's hard things to keep saying. Crisps and chips. So I call crisps chips, and that creates a lot of confusion. Yeah.
Well, I call crisps chips.
Oh, like
Yeah.
like packet ones.
Yeah, like I would never say crisps.
Oh
I
my
would just
god,
say like a bag of
where
chips.
did we go?
Yeah.
Canada and New Zealand.
Yeah, New Zealand's like a weird like mixture between
Okay.
UK and here. Yeah. Was that it for my quick questions? I just need to add one on, which is, what is your favorite musical?
There's so many. I love Come From Away. Amazing. Have you seen it?
Okay, so Come From Away was actually workshopped at my school. So like, yeah, so like the early workshops of the show, like I saw like the early iterations.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
That one blew me. That was the last one I saw before lockdown. I haven't been able to go yet, but I also like the Book of Mormon. I love funny things. Are you okay?
Okay.
Was there a hellfire?
So Book of Mormon is like my favorite musical. And it actually...
No way. It's amazing.
Like I wear this basically every time I cook, and I also listen to the Book of Mormon like 90% of the time when I'm baking.
That's actually like crazy because they're my two favorites. And but the last time I said Book of Mormon was one of my favorites to someone, they're like, "Oh, I didn't like it," and I was like, "How could you possibly not like it?" I wrote a whole essay on it in my musical theatre degree on on how it wasn't offensive. Like not like because it's but like how they get away with the jokes in that context, because like if you take it out of the context and you said those things, you're like, oh god. Look who's come to join.
Great. Well, thank you, Lincoln, for joining our video today. In case you're all wondering and don't know, Lincoln is famous on the internet.
Yes.
So where can people find you?
Oh yeah. So you can find me on everything except Twitter for some reason. I just never got onto it. Instagram, How to Coeliac. YouTube, How to Coeliac. TikTok now, How to Coeliac. My blog is www.how-to-coeliac.com. And you can find Lincoln on his TikTok. Just Lincoln in love.
I love it. And yeah, be sure to give her a subscribe on YouTube. Her videos are amazing. Go look at her reels and everything on Instagram and TikTok. They're hilarious. Thank you so much for joining me today, Morgan. It was a pleasure to have you on.
Oh, no worries. I lovely to meet you over the internet.
Bye.
Bye.
Thanks again to Morgan for joining me today, and thank you for watching. All the links that we mentioned today will be in the description below. And while you're there, be sure to like, comment, and subscribe to my channel. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.